The Puck Portfolio with Andy MacNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio Stanley Cup Final Preview. My name is Andy MacNeil. This show is sponsored by NorthStar Bets. And now the field of 16 teams has been narrowed down to two, as the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers will battle it out to find out who will be crowned the NHL champion. If successful, the Oilers will become the first Canadian team since the Montreal Canadiens back in 1993 to hoist the Stanley Cup. However, according to odds makers over at NorthStar Bet and the betting market at large, Florida is the favorite to win it all. Let's start with the favorite. Florida is back to take care of some unfinished business and win its first Stanley Cup in franchise history. The Panthers lost in 5 games to the Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup final last year, but they're a better team in many ways. Last season, Florida squeaked into the playoffs as the 8th seed. This season, they won the Atlantic Division with 110 points. And so far in the playoffs, they've eliminated the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5 games, the Boston Bruins in 6 games, and the New York Rangers in 6 games as well. The Panthers are an elite defensive team, but the remnants of an offensive juggernaut still remain. Florida was the best offensive team in hockey 2 seasons ago when they won the President's Trophy. And while they have sacrificed some of that for the greater good of the team, this aspect of the Panthers game should not be taken lightly by the Edmonton Oilers. Florida's star power is spread out a lot more than Edmonton's among players like Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Reinhart, and Carter Verhaeghe, but the Panthers have a very healthy dose of scoring depth. Edmonton, meanwhile, was a Stanley Cup favorite heading into the season, but they started 2-9-1 and found themselves tied for last place on November 9th. However, following a coaching change, the Oilers went on a 46-18-5 run, including a 16-game winning streak. They finished second in the Pacific Division as a result. The Oilers eliminated the Los Angeles Kings in 5 games, but they had to overcome series deficits to defeat the Vancouver Canucks in 7 games and the Dallas Stars in 6 games in the Western Conference Final. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl have led the way, not just for the Oilers, but for the entire NHL playoffs with 31 and 28 points in 18 games, respectively. However, Evan Bouchard, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Zach Hyman have also scored at a point-per-game pace or better in the playoffs. Of course, the Oilers' power play has also been great, going 19 for 51 in the playoffs, but it's the penalty kill that's been receiving the most buzz, as Edmonton's penalty kill has killed off 28 in a row and 3 for 49 in this playoffs. Florida hasn't faced off against a possession monster like the Edmonton Oilers yet in the playoffs, though, and they certainly haven't had the task of shutting down McDavid and Draisaitl. The Panthers like to play on the edge, and as a result, they take a lot of penalties. Florida ranks second in minor penalties taken during the regular season, and that's where they rank in the playoffs. Therefore, the Oilers' power play should see a lot more ice time than it did in the Western Conference Final, as the Panthers took 122 more minor penalties than the Dallas Stars did this season. Florida has been great on the penalty kill, but it's a numbers game, and the Oilers' power play doesn't miss that often. Sergei Bobrovsky has allowed 2 or fewer goals in 13 out of 17 games this postseason, but Edmonton has scored 3 or more goals in 14 out of 18 games. 8 of Florida's last 9 games have been decided by 1 goal, and 8 of those games have featured 5 goals or fewer. In other words, a goal here and a goal there, and the Panthers probably wouldn't have made it this far. But the Stars went quiet in Boston and New York. That's not likely to be the case for Edmonton, though, as Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are virtually impossible to shut down for any length of time. The Oilers have also held opponents to 25 shots on goal or fewer in 11 out of their 18 games this postseason, but Florida has generated that many at least in all 17 games this playoffs. Therefore, the Panthers will generate more shots and chances than any of Edmonton's previous opponents, and while the Oilers can win with Stuart Skinner in goal, it's difficult to favor Edmonton when better goaltenders like Igor Shesterkin have tried to stop the Panthers and failed. Edmonton also has a penchant for sitting on leads, as they did in Game 6 of the Western Conference Final. The Oilers were outshot 34-10 by the Dallas Stars, tying a record for the lowest shot total in a playoff win in NHL history. The Panthers have the second most comeback wins over the past 3 seasons, including 6 this postseason, while Edmonton has led in 4 out of the 6 games that they've lost in the playoffs. Picking a side here is pretty difficult, as we rarely see the two best teams make it this far. However, since 2006, the favorite has gone 14-4 in the Stanley Cup final, so it might be best to defer to the betting market when making a prediction. Additionally, the team with home ice advantage has gone 12-6 in the Stanley Cup final during that stretch. From a betting perspective, though, it's Edmonton or nothing. According to my projections, Florida will win the Stanley Cup just 51% of the time, so this series should be priced more like a pick'em, not minus 134 in favor of the Panthers. With that said, plus 112 isn't all that appealing, and it would be better to bet on the Oilers to win Game 1 at plus 115 odds than to take them to win the series at plus 112. I mean, if you're really looking to tie up money on Edmonton futures, it would probably be a better idea to just take the plus 175 on McDavid to win the Conn Smythe Trophy, considering he will almost certainly win if Edmonton wins the Cup. But ideally, you wouldn't have waited this long to make that decision, as McDavid was available at much longer odds earlier in the postseason. McDavid is the favorite to finish with the most points in the series at plus 115 odds, but you could look elsewhere for a player to finish atop that category. For example, Sam Reinhart is priced at 11-1 odds to finish with the most points in the Stanley Cup final. He's had a relatively quiet postseason with 12 points in 17 games, but he did lead the Panthers with 94 points in the 82-game regular season. There's also Leon Draisaitl, who is a longer shot than McDavid at 4-1 odds, because he's arguably the only player capable of keeping pace with McDavid when number 97 is at his best. Draisaitl has been the best player for stretches in this postseason, and he's actually been more consistent than McDavid throughout these playoffs. Then again, the star power is off the charts in this matchup, and any one of a handful of players could step up and be the one that leads their team to victory in the Stanley Cup final. That does it for our Stanley Cup final preview. We'll be back throughout the series to break things down from a betting perspective before and after each game, starting on Friday, June 7th, with a live stream at 1 p.m. Eastern Time right here on the Canada Sports Betting YouTube channel. Subscribe now if you haven't already. Until then, good luck with your bets.